Throughout 2018, Half-Life 2 MMod's ModDB page said it was going to be releasing in 2018. I didn't really believe it, to be honest, as release dates for mods generally don't work out. These are people with full-time jobs doing this as a passion project on the side, so it would make sense that release dates generally don't work. Hell, even retail releases generally don't work on release dates like this. Black Mesa is a great example. We're still waiting on Zen. And even Zen had its release date pushed back. But to my surprise, MMod came out on Christmas, a few days before 2019, so they stayed to their word. This mod has been in progress for many years, and this small team of only around 4 people have already released a new patch a few days after the initial release, so they've been hard at work. But the question is, what does this mod do that's different from other mods? And that's the question I'm going to answer in this Half-Life analysis. To understand what MMod wants to do, we have to understand that most mods have an end goal for their mod. That end goal could be to make an entirely new game that doesn't play like Half-Life 2 at all. Or maybe it's just to add on top of what we already have with Half-Life 2. Or maybe the goal is just, let's add some cool stuff, and there's not much more to it. Well, MMod actually has 2 different goals, because they have 2 different builds they plan on releasing. The one we've already gotten is the quote-unquote lore-friendly version, where they don't really mess too much with Half-Life 2. There's going to be another build coming out later with some guns that we didn't get out of the beta build and some other cool new stuff. We haven't seen most of it, we've only really seen the AK-47 and the YCW. We'll see that in the future, but for right now let's talk about the lore-friendly build of MMod. The name lore-friendly is exactly what this is. MMod's main goal is to simply enhance the combat experience without ruining the story and aesthetics of Half-Life 2. Even the new weapons added into this already existed within the Half-Life universe. The stun stick you get at the beginning works sort of like a crowbar, except for it's way cooler, let's just be honest. And the new guns you get are limited ammo turrets or even the Tau cannon that you can pull off your buggy. These already existed in the world and they don't pull you out of the world. They're cool new additions, but it's not something that really stands out as being out of place. Everything you experienced in Half-Life 2 is going to feel like Half-Life 2. The pacing is the same, the voice acting is the same, the graphics saw some additional stuff added to it, but the aesthetics were not changed. The added graphical features are things like better anti-aliasing, ambient occlusion, better particle effects, so on and so forth. They're not things that change the game entirely as much as just small improvements. To explain it best, I feel like this mod does what most people wanted Cinematic Mod to do. Although in defense of Cinematic Mod, a lot of people misunderstood what it was supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to just be a prettier graphics Half-Life 2, it was supposed to be its own project, but a lot of people misunderstood that. And this is where I need to add a very small interjection to this whole conversation and say that Half-Life 2 has a little bit of a community problem. Half-Life 2 has the most extreme case of purists I have seen out of any video game. Now keep in mind, I grew up playing Half-Life, so I've always been around it. And I also grew up playing Halo, but still, the Half-Life 2 community manages to have more purists than Halo does, which is really saying something. You can't even start working on a Half-Life 2 mod without worrying about having a mob of angry people running at you saying you're destroying the game. And these people will go to extreme lengths. Okay, you don't like Cinematic Mod, I get it, but do you really need to go out of your way to send death threats to the person making the mod? Do you need to attack any content creator speaking about it at all, or even attack anyone playing the mod? Do you need to leave hate comments to anyone that says anything positive about it? It's almost as if Half-Life 2 is so holy that if you change anything about it, it's a personal attack on that person. Especially if you make any changes at all to Alex Vance. That's the one that really gets people going. I might make this its own analysis video in the future, but people are so purist about Half-Life 2 that it's almost like they don't want more content for it because they see it as a perfect game. Whereas personally myself, I always want more content for it because I enjoyed the game and I want more. It's not like these mods are official things coming out of Valve changing Half-Life 2. They're optional, cool, extra content that you may or may not like. And that's fine. Half-Life 2 MMod is trying to steer away from this sort of anger that Cinematic Mod got by making 2 different versions of the mod like I said earlier. And the lore-friendly one should, in theory, be good for even the most extreme of purists. But it's not. I still got plenty of comments of people hating it because it's not core Half-Life 2. That said, MMod did exactly what it aimed to do. Had the same aesthetic and pacing as core Half-Life 2. If you haven't played Half-Life 2 in 5 years, you might not even notice anything different. Although it would be pretty hard not to notice the new animations, the game still seems the same. And that's great. This is a uniquely Half-Life 2 experience. Now, I wouldn't tell you if you haven't played Half-Life to just play this mod instead of the base game. I would always encourage someone to play vanilla Half-Life or whatever vanilla game you're playing before playing mods, with the exception of Doom 3. But, you know, it wouldn't be too bad, I probably wouldn't lose sleep over it if someone played this mod first before playing vanilla Half-Life 2. And on top of all of this, if you don't want these settings, maybe you just want the added graphical options, well, you can turn all these gameplay settings off, or even all the graphical options off too. Everything is easy to change in a menu when you pause the game. Don't need to close it, don't need to deal with some extra program, just right there in the game. Okay, I've talked about things that are mostly the same so far, let's talk about things that are different. The most obvious ones are just the different animations. All of these guns still feel like the base guns, but the animations are much smoother and, in my opinion, are much better than core Half-Life 2. This crossbow animation is just so smooth. They even added in that feature from Killing Floor 2 where if you press the reload key when you've already reloaded, you play the idle animation. But again, all the guns feel like they're base guns with a slight twist. Now before you lynch the creators of this mod, there is aiming in this game, although it's not necessarily true ADS. Both the pistol and the revolver have ADS, but the other ones just do this sort of Fear 1 style zoom, and personally I actually prefer the zoom. In the Half-Life 2 MMod gun showcase video I made, I got a lot of comments on both sides. I got the stereotypical purist response of ADS in Half-Life, you're ruining Half-Life. And I also got the ones of people complaining that the iron sights weren't really lined up properly and didn't really work, or the iron sights only worked with the pistols, yet you have a sight on the SMG and you didn't use it. So lots of complaints that I pretty much ignored. The thing is, I would have preferred the zoom on all weapons. The iron sights don't really line up properly with both pistols, and it actually makes it kind of difficult to snipe people with the revolver like you're used to doing. I just used hipfire with it because, well, look at the iron sights. Aside from that, this zoom isn't really a true ADS. Half-Life never had ADS, so combat largely revolved around lots of movement, and with ADS this really slows your movement down. This slight zoom mechanic makes the game feel a little smoother and faster like, say, the original Fear. And it feels particularly good with the SMG and the AR2. It's also useful with the crossbow when they're too close for the scope, but not directly in your face. You get an extra little zoom in between. And this is honestly the biggest upgrade for this mod from the base game. The weapons feel really good. And one of the biggest changes they made is the quote-unquote weapon spread type, which you can change in the gameplay settings in the menu. You have three options: Default Half-Life 2, Default Half-Life 2 Mix, and Half-Life 2 MMod. Default Half-Life 2 is exactly what you'd expect. Just like vanilla Half-Life 2, none of the hipfire or anything has been changed. Half-Life 2 MMod, however, has an extra system in place. If you're sprinting or jumping, your guns are going to be less accurate. If you stand still or crouch, your guns are going to be more accurate. This sounds counterintuitive, but this is actually really useful and adds to the combat. It doesn't slow it down. The end result of this system makes it so that things like automatics have more versatility. If they're farther away, you can stop for a moment, crouch, and start shooting at range, whereas in Default Half-Life 2 you couldn't use the automatics at all at that range. But up close you can still hipfire and still spray and do perfectly fine. Personally myself, I preferred the Default Half-Life 2 Mix, which is the third option, kind of a mixture of the two. I found this to be the fastest setting and gives me the most amount of versatility. In the end of the day, the main goal is to simply make Half-Life 2, but with better combat. The combat is the only thing that saw a drastic change. The updated visuals are nice, but it still looks exactly like Half-Life 2, just a little smoother. And this really has made me respect MMod. And I feel like this is what a lot of people want. Half-Life 2, but better. The best analogy, as I've mentioned numerous times throughout this video, is the original Fear. The combat does start feeling like the original Fear, although the maps aren't quite as good as Fear 1. Unfortunately, sticking as true as you can to Half-Life 2 sort of limits you to Half-Life 2's, well, mediocre map design. The enemy AI doesn't really have a whole lot more it can do other than run straight at you. The maps are pretty hallway-based shooting. Whereas in the original Fear, every single combat encounter had many different ways to approach, letting you outsmart the AI, or even the AI outsmarting you. Granted, Fear's AI is significantly better than Half-Life 2's, but still, AI is going to look smarter when you have better maps. This is not a fault of the mod by any means, they're working with what they have. They did make one small change to try to make the combat seem a little smarter, or at least give them a little bit of extra options, and that is that they can now jump. It's a small change, but you will be seeing them jump off catwalks into different areas to hopefully do something more than just run straight at you. And it does help to a certain degree. So who is this mod for? This mod is for someone that really wants to play Half-Life 2 again. And I really do mean Half-Life 2. I don't mean some mod with a bunch of new guns that doesn't feel like the base game, I just mean Half-Life 2. This mod works with Half-Life 2, Episode 1, Episode 2, and even both Lost Coast and Minerva Metastasis. I played through all of these and I can confirm that they work perfectly fine. I found MMod greatly improved the combat in every single one of these releases. It's honestly not as deep as I'm making this video come out to be. MMod's gunplay just feels good, and that is going to be your main reason for wanting to play the game. All the tricks you had when you first played through Half-Life 2 are going to work, all the things you want to do when you played through Half-Life 2, going to work. That about sums up this short analysis of Half-Life 2 MMod. I would highly recommend you check out this mod, it is a lot of fun. If you're enjoying the gameplay in the background, that is all taken from my Twitch, so if you want to come hang out with me over on my Twitch, you can check my Twitch at twitch.tv/Jarek4GamingDragon. I also have a Discord for this channel down below in the video information. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Huge thanks out to my Twitch subs and my patrons, and I will see you guys next video.